And welcome to another weekly wisdom. I'm joining you today from the C Network office and headquarters down in downtown Manhattan in the financial district. And I am so excited to be back after taking a week off for the Memorial Day holiday. It is time for another weekly wisdom. If you're unfamiliar, every Tuesday at 9 a.m., I have a little tidbit, a little bit of wisdom to share with you related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the hope is that you're able to take that information and turn around that day or that week and actually implement it. So today's topic is all about the ways that you can consider compensating your DEI volunteers. These are people who have decided to support diversity, equity, and inclusion, not in the way that everyone should, because everyone should within the organization, literally everyone should have a role in supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion. However, there are some people, we all know who they are, who end up volunteering a lot of their extra time to support diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And I am talking about those people whose roles are not dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are people who set aside time in addition to the work that they are already doing full time within their organization to supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion. So today I want to talk about how we can compensate those DEI volunteers. And as we talk about them, I want to make sure that we're on the same page about who we're talking about. So let's describe some examples of who these people might be. So examples of DEI volunteers may include DEI task force members. So if you have a diversity, equity, and inclusion task force, and you have members who are forming different initiatives and working really closely with different leaders, that task force has people who are likely not dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion full time. The same is true with DEI committees, which sometimes have a slightly different focus, but those members might also be doing their work full time and then making sure that they're setting aside time for the committee meetings, the subcommittee meetings, making sure they're putting on those events, making sure that they're looking through the initiatives, advocating on behalf of different people from different backgrounds. That's a lot of work. And we want to make sure that we're rewarding these people. The same is true for employee resource group leaders. If you have employee resource groups or affinity groups within your organization and you're not finding ways to compensate your leaders, you might be missing out on a way to demonstrate how important their work is and a way to make sure that you're continually incentivizing and supporting them. What we know is that employee resource group leaders are most traditionally underrepresented because often employee resource groups, the most popular ones, support communities that are underrepresented within workplaces. So likely the leaders identify similarly as that group. And so when these groups are doing amazing work to support Black employees, Latinx employees, women, or LGBTQ plus employees, among others, it's important that you make sure that they know that they are valued and that that work is not working counter to what they are doing full time. Sometimes it can feel like there is an extra burden on those employee resource group leaders. And then also your executive sponsors, whether they be sponsors of the employee resource groups, of the committees, of the task forces, those most senior members of your team who have been appointed or who have volunteered to support these groups, they also should get some measure of acknowledgement or compensation for what they're doing, because we want to make sure that we are acknowledging how important this work is. So these are the examples of the DEI volunteers. And now let's jump into the 3 ways to compensate those volunteers, because I want to make sure that you are able to today turn around and implement some of these ideas. Starting with the first one. Now, if this isn't already something you're doing, I highly encourage you to consider it, incorporating DEI into performance reviews. Now, this is something that might seem like a very difficult thing to do, especially if you haven't touched your performance review process in a while. But I encourage you to consider looking into what it would be like to incorporate this into your performance review, so that when it comes time for your employee resource group leaders or your DEI committee members to experience the performance review process, they're not feeling like they did all of this work for their employee resource group or for their committee or for their task force, and none of that is being incorporated or acknowledged, especially if it seems that that was intention with their everyday work on a regular basis. So that's your first tip. A second tip is to invest in these volunteers' professional development and offering sponsorship opportunities. You'll want to make sure that people are feeling like this is not just a job that they do in a corner, that you are offering them ways to build their skills as a result of having these roles. Professional development opportunities, experiences in front of senior leaders where they can be exposed to potential sponsors, and then formal sponsorship connections where you're making sure that all of these leaders, no matter what level they may be at, if these volunteers are supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion, they should get some support from senior leadership and some direct exposure to these senior leaders to be able to build those sponsorship opportunities. Lastly, you'll want to budget for an end-of-year bonus or other monetary compensation. This is something that we sometimes work with clients over time because we know that it's not always something that's easy to do. There are many other ways to acknowledge and recognize your DEI volunteers. If this is a potential option for you, if you do have the ability to budget for an end-of-year bonus or some other kind of monetary compensation, then we always encourage it. We're seeing a lot more organizations doing this, and it again is a demonstration of how much you value and care for this work within your company. Okay, so we had a chance to talk through the 3 different ways to potentially compensate your employee resource group leaders, your DEI committee leaders, your DEI task force members, your executive sponsors, or any other DEI volunteers who are doing this work in addition to their day job, to the work that they have on their job description. I want to highlight the second one just one more time, investing in their professional development and offering sponsorship opportunities. I want to highlight that one because we actually within C-Network have an exciting new way to potentially support your ERG, Employee Resource Group, or Affinity Group leaders through a professional development opportunity. I want to show you all about it. I want to tell you all about it and show you as well. So if you go to cnetwork.com, you can learn more about this particular opportunity. I'm also going to go ahead and make sure that you can see this here. So this is an outline of our Employee Resource Group Leadership Bootcamp, which is a 6-week blended learning experience for anyone who wants to learn more about how to launch and sustain really strong employee resource groups. This leadership experience is hopefully going to have real impact on your employee resource group leaders and on yourself if you're just getting started with launching them. You'll see here that you can find this information on cnetwork.com. There's also a banner at the top where you can click to enroll or to learn more. And this is what the page looks like. What's included is exclusive access to 6 weeks of self-paced learning materials. These learning materials are centered around employee resource groups, leadership, but also there is some acknowledgement that we want to think about the professional development of all of these employees on multiple dimensions. So we're trying to incorporate different experiences that will allow all of these leaders to feel like they're getting some additional professional development around leading meetings, around thinking about project planning and whatnot. There's also a bunch of networking community building experiences. We have some very cool virtual events planned, and we even have one in-person event planned that we will be streaming. Not sure yet if we can get it live, but for those who are in New York, everyone who signs up for this program, for this boot camp, will be invited to come in person if they want to the New York event, and everyone who is not in New York will be able to join virtually. And this is a panel where ERG leaders will share their success stories, and again, there will be opportunities to network. We also will have 60-minute webinars on any DEI topic of your choice. These will be hosted by C-Network experts. My colleagues and I will share some of our little tidbits over the course of 60 minutes. And these webinars will be decided by the members of the community who join the bootcamp. We also will have office hours and individualized coaching, which is exciting. And there is an opportunity to earn a completion certificate because we are a SHRM recertification provider. So if that is something that you are interested in, you can absolutely have this count toward that. I'm very excited about this. Again, you can go to cnetwork.com and learn more about this by clicking on the top banner where it says click here to learn more or to enroll today. And with that, this was this week's Weekly Wisdom. Oh, I forgot to mention that the deadline for this is June 21st. So please make sure that you are signing up if this is of interest to you. All right. Again, thank you everyone for your time, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week at the next Weekly Wisdom. Bye everyone.